My name is Garrett Jensen. I caught my mom cheating, with my dad's best friend. I didn't scream. I didn't confront her, I watched. I recorded. And I waited, because some betrayals don't deserve forgiveness. They deserve consequences. This is how I turned their lies into justice, and walked away with my peace. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story like this, and stick around to the end, because sometimes, the quietest revenge makes the loudest impact. Now, let me tell you how my mother's affair changed everything. I wasn't supposed to be home until Sunday. We had planned a long weekend, me and 3 buddies, camping up near McCall. Fishing, beer, no cell service. It was the last hurrah before college started in the fall. But when Tyler started puking Saturday morning, the whole trip came to a screeching halt. By late afternoon, I was pulling into our driveway in Meridian, Idaho. The sun was low, casting that warm orange glow over everything, the kind of light that always made our quiet little neighborhood feel safe. Familiar. I should have known better. The first thing that struck me was how quiet the house was. No TV. No music. No dishes clinking. Just silence. Dad's truck wasn't in the driveway, so I figured he was working late again or maybe catching a beer with his buddy Rick. I stepped inside, set my duffel bag down by the door, and called out, "Mom." No answer. I started toward the stairs, but then I heard it, a voice. A man's voice. I froze. It wasn't Dad's. I knew that immediately. My father had a deep, steady voice. This one was softer. More casual. And then I heard her, my mother, laugh. I stood at the bottom step, heart pounding. Maybe it was the TV. Maybe it was on speakerphone, but no, the voices were coming from upstairs. From the master bedroom, I crept up, each step feeling heavier than the last. My mind scrambled for explanations I didn't believe. Maybe it was one of Dad's friends. Maybe they were just talking. The door to their bedroom wasn't fully shut. Just cracked, maybe 2 inches. Enough to see movement. Shadows, and then I saw it, my mom, sitting on the edge of the bed, laughing. Wearing nothing but a robe. Next to her was Ethan Ross, our neighbor. My dad's friend since high school. His fishing buddy. He leaned in, brushed her hair behind her ear. She smiled like a teenager, like the version of her I hadn't seen in years. Then she pulled him close, and their mouths met like it wasn't the first time. I felt something twist in my chest, tight, sharp, sickening. I didn't make a sound. Didn't move. Just backed down the stairs slowly, carefully, like if I made a noise, it would make it real. Outside, I sat in my car with the door open and my hands shaking. I stared at the street, the trees, the neighbor's lawn sprinkler ticking back and forth. The world hadn't changed, but mine had. In that moment, something inside me fractured. This wasn't just infidelity. It wasn't just betrayal. This was a slow-motion car crash of everything I believed about my family, and deep down, I knew, I couldn't tell my dad. Not yet. Not like this, because this wasn't a fight, this was a war, and if I was going to win it, I had to be smarter than both of them. The next morning, Mom made pancakes, blueberry, Dad's favorite. She hummed in the kitchen like it was any other Saturday, like she hadn't just shattered everything the night before with someone who wasn't her husband. I sat at the table, watching her. Really watching. Every little movement, how she flipped the pancakes, how she smiled when Dad came downstairs. How she leaned against the counter with that same easy rhythm she'd used my whole life. If I hadn't seen it myself, I'd never have known. That was the worst part. The ease of it. She looked my dad in the eye, kissed his cheek, asked how his shoulder was feeling from the garage work he'd done earlier in the week. He laughed. He smiled, and I sat there choking down pancakes that tasted like lies. I didn't say anything. Not then. Not yet. I needed to be sure of what I saw. Not because I doubted it, no, that image was seared into my mind like a scar, but because I needed to know if this was a one-time thing. Or something deeper. Something longer. It didn't take long to find out. The following Wednesday, Ethan Ross came by like he always did. Brought a six-pack, sat in the backyard with Dad for a bit, then helped him install new light fixtures in the garage. The whole time, Mom flitted around like a perfect hostess, laughing a little too loud, touching his arm when she passed. I watched from the window. I saw the looks they shared when Dad's back was turned. I noticed how their hands brushed just a little too long when she handed him a glass of iced tea. Dad didn't see it. Not because he wasn't smart, he just trusted people. Especially people he'd known since high school. That trust was a weapon, and they were using it against him. The worst part? Ethan was always around. Church, cookouts, fishing trips. He was practically family. The man helped teach me how to drive. I used to look up to him. Now I couldn't even look at him without wanting to punch through a wall, but I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I started paying attention. Recording details. Times. Places. Watching patterns. Mom kept pretending. She'd hug me goodnight like she used to, ask about my plans. Offer to drive me into Boise if I needed anything. It was all a performance. But once you've seen behind the curtain, the show never looks the same again. At night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my hands clenched under the blanket. The thing about betrayal, it doesn't scream, it whispers. It smiles. It brings you pancakes and kisses you on the cheek before it buries a knife in your back. I didn't know when or how, but I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to let this go. I was going to burn the truth into the light, and when I did, I'd make sure everyone saw it. I used to think spying was for movies. That creeping around with a camera or tracking someone's location was something only detectives or paranoid lunatics did. But when your mom is sleeping with your dad's best friend, and they're smiling through breakfast like nothing's wrong, you learn fast. I started small. An old phone I'd kept after upgrading still worked on Wi-Fi. I set it up on top of my bookshelf facing the front hallway, angled just enough to catch the living room and the bottom of the stairs. Every night before I went to bed, I hit record and left it running. Within a week, I had footage of Mom sneaking downstairs in a hoodie and slippers after Dad went to sleep. Once, she left the front door cracked for 5 minutes. The next frame showed Ethan stepping inside like it was his own house. They didn't even whisper. Just kept their voices low enough to avoid waking anyone. I started logging everything, times. Dates. What they were wearing. I saved the clips, backed them up to a hidden cloud account. It became my ritual. After school or work, I'd come home, act normal, then review the footage like clockwork. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. Ethan wasn't just a fling. He was woven into our lives. There were photos of him at my birthday parties from when I was 8. Videos of him handing Dad a beer at a 4th of July barbecue. I even found a photo of him holding me as a baby, my mom smiling next to him, closer than she should have been. Had it started that far back? I dug into phone records. My mom's phone bill showed frequent texts to a number I didn't recognize at first. But when I called it from a blocked line, Ethan's voice answered. I started looking through drawers, cabinets. Found a small notebook tucked into the back of the pantry behind the canned soup. Inside were scribbled names, locations, dates. Motel addresses. Notes like Cuna 2 p.m. Thursday and Clear Creek, late drive. She'd kept track of their meetings like appointments. I borrowed my dad's tool bag one afternoon and slipped a tiny audio recorder into the trunk of Ethan's SUV when he stopped by. What I got was confirmation I didn't even want, dirty jokes, whispered plans, and one sentence that cemented my rage: he's too blind to ever notice. He still thinks I'm his friend. My chest felt hollow when I heard it. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a long con. My dad had given Ethan his trust, his loyalty, and the keys to our family's life, and Ethan had used it all to sneak into our house, our hearts, and my mother's bed. But I wasn't the blind one anymore. The evidence was stacking up. And soon, so would the consequences. All I needed now was the right moment to drop the hammer. My dad's 49th birthday fell on a Saturday that year, warm skies, no wind, the kind of summer day people in Meridian live for. Mom planned a cookout like nothing was wrong. Burgers on the grill, lawn chairs under the cottonwood, country music playing from the Bluetooth speaker. She wore her favorite sundress, the blue one with the sunflower print, and greeted every guest with a hug and that practiced smile. I watched from the porch swing, silent, chewing on the inside of my cheek while flipping through the messages I'd collected, motel receipts, text logs, grainy nighttime footage from our living room camera. The USB drive in my pocket felt heavier than steel. This wasn't just Dad's birthday, it was the final act before the curtain dropped. People filtered in, neighbors, a few coworkers, my aunt and uncle from Boise. And then, right on cue, Ethan Ross pulled up. Same worn ball cap. Same smug grin. Same lie, dressed up as family. He walked right into our backyard. Handed Dad a six-pack, and slapped him on the back like nothing was wrong. I nearly stood up, nearly told him right there, in front of everyone, to get his hands off my father and crawl back to whatever rock he slithered out from. But I didn't. Not yet. I needed Dad to see it. Not hear it from me. See it for himself, feel the knife twist the way I had, so I waited. I watched Ethan and Mom talk by the garden hose. Close. Too close. She leaned in to say something, and he laughed in that fake, low voice I'd heard too many times in audio files. Their hands brushed. His thumb lingered on hers for half a second longer than it should have, and no one else noticed. No one ever noticed. Except me. As dusk crept in, the fire pit lit up and the cake came out, chocolate with peanut butter icing, Dad's favorite. Everyone sang, clapped, and cheered. He smiled like a man who believed in his life. I wanted to hate him for being so blind. But I couldn't. He was just a good man who trusted the wrong people. When things quieted down and guests started saying their goodbyes, I pulled him aside. We stood under the porch light, the sounds of the party still murmuring behind us. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the drive, and pressed it into his hand. What's this? He asked, brow furrowed. Just watch it tonight. When you're alone. He looked at me for a long second, trying to read my face. But I kept it blank. He nodded slowly. All right. And with that, the fuse was lit. The party carried on. Mom laughed. Ethan joked with Uncle Jim about truck tires. They had no idea the fire was already smoldering beneath their feet. I sat back on the porch swing, hands steady for the first time in weeks, because I didn't need to yell, or scream, or break something to destroy them. All I had to do was let the truth speak for itself. There are moments when silence is louder than any fight, heavier than any slam of a door or scream echoing down a hallway. That was our house the morning after the cookout. I woke early. Too early. The sun hadn't cleared the horizon yet, and the air outside the window was still cool with night. I stayed in bed, staring at the ceiling, knowing he'd watched it. The drive I gave him wasn't just a folder. It was a bomb with no ticking sound. Inside were videos, clear, time-stamped footage of Mom sneaking out, Ethan letting himself in. Audio clips of hushed conversations. Text threads that read like scenes from a cheap romance novel. Photos. Motel receipts. Everything dated, catalogued, undeniable. I labeled it insurance not because I was afraid. I wasn't protecting myself. I was protecting him, from her, from the lies, from the false image of the life he thought he had. I heard the coffee maker whirring downstairs around 6. That was early, even for Dad. Usually, he didn't stir until after 7. But today, he was pacing. Thinking, bleeding, probably, in that quiet, invisible way only a man like him could. When I finally came down, he was sitting at the kitchen table in his flannel pajama pants, staring into a half-empty mug like it might give him answers. The drive was sitting on the table next to his hand. He didn't look at me when I walked in. Didn't need to. Thanks, he said quietly, like the word was carved from stone. For being the one to tell me. I nodded, throat dry. I'm sorry. His eyes finally met mine, red-rimmed, but not watery. Not broken. Not yet, don't be, he said. I should have seen it. I just didn't want to. That's when the silence settled in for real. Not just absence of sound, but the full weight of reality pressing into the walls. Mom came down a little while later. Her hair tied up, wearing a soft smile that vanished the moment she saw us. She paused, sensing the shift in the air, like a deer sniffing smoke. "Morning," she said carefully. Dad didn't respond. I stood up and left the kitchen. I couldn't watch her pretend, not now. Not when everything was out in the open and she still had the nerve to act like nothing had changed, but everything had. That day passed like a funeral procession. No yelling. No confrontation. Just a heavy, slow march toward the inevitable. She knew something was wrong by noon. By dinner, she knew he knew, but the words didn't come. Not yet. The silence was working its way through them like a poison. And I let it. Because I'd done my part. I didn't need to be the hero, I just needed to light the match, and now, the fire was theirs to face. It happened on a Tuesday. 2 days of silence had stretched across the house like tarps over a crime scene. Dad barely spoke. Mom tried, half-hearted attempts at conversation, offering him coffee, asking what he wanted for dinner. He either ignored her or answered with one-word responses. But that Tuesday morning, the dam broke. I was upstairs when it started. I heard his voice first, louder than I'd heard it in years. "How long?" A pause. Then again, sharper this time. "How long, Marlene?" I crept down the stairs, heart pounding in my chest like a drum. The kitchen was a war zone, Dad standing by the fridge, arms tense, voice shaking. Mom frozen near the sink, still in her robe, hair messy like she hadn't slept either. "Don't pretend you don't know what I'm talking about," he snapped, slapping something onto the table. I knew it was the drive. She looked at it. Then at him. Then at me, realizing I was at the bottom of the stairs. She swallowed hard. "You went through my things." "No," he said coldly. "Garrett did." She turned toward me, eyes wide. I cut her off before she could spit it out. "Don't even try, Mom. I saw it. I recorded it. You brought him into our house." Dad stepped forward, voice like a growl. "How long have you been sleeping with Ethan Ross?" She tried to talk, started some weak, rehearsed line. But he slammed his hand on the table, and the words scattered like broken glass. "Don't lie to me. Not now." That's when the crying started, not remorseful, not heartfelt, just messy, panicked sobs. She buried her face in her hands and kept repeating, "I didn't mean for it to happen." Dad didn't flinch. He stood there, a statue carved out of heartbreak. That afternoon, he drove straight to Ethan's house. I went with him. I didn't even ask, I just got in the truck and shut the door. Ethan answered the door looking like he'd just come from work, neatly pressed shirt, a beer in hand, smile fading fast when he saw who was on the porch. "Hey, Steve, what's up?" My dad's fist connected with his jaw before he could say another word. Ethan hit the porch rail hard, beer bottle shattering across the deck. His wife, Dana, screamed from inside. The kid started crying. I didn't move. "You sleep with my wife," Dad said, standing over him. "You look me in the eye at dinner, and you think you get to smile on my porch." Dana rushed out. "What's going on?" she shouted. I looked her straight in the eye. "You should check his phone. Or ask about the motel on Route 30. Her face went pale. That was the moment. The ripple became a wave. Dana dragged Ethan inside, screaming. Dad didn't say another word. We just walked back to the truck. By nightfall, every phone in the neighborhood was lighting up. Whispers turned to truths. Truths turned to fire, and the house I grew up in would never be the same again. If Meridian had a breaking news channel for gossip, we would have made the front page every hour. By Wednesday, the fallout wasn't just inside our house, it was everywhere. The first domino was Ethan. Someone from the dealership must have seen the mess on social media. Dana's furious post hit Facebook like a lightning bolt. "My husband has been cheating with his best friend's wife for over a year. Don't buy a car from a liar." It went local viral in minutes. The post vanished by the next morning, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. Ethan got fired on Thursday. Bad optics, they told him. Can't have a man like that smiling in family commercials. By Friday, Dana had changed the locks and thrown his clothes on the lawn. The Ross house sat dark that night, curtains drawn, porch light off. Mom tried to keep her head down. She stopped going to church. Cancelled her piano lessons. But word travels fast in a town like Meridian, and faster when it's about someone everyone thought they knew. At the grocery store, she got silent stares. People who used to hug her now turned their carts the other way. She came home crying once, after someone muttered homewrecker under their breath in the checkout line. I didn't say anything. I didn't comfort her, she wasn't the victim. She was the match that lit this fire. Dad stayed with Uncle Mike out in Nampa for a while. I split my time between there and the house, mostly to make sure Mom didn't spiral into something worse. She walked around like a ghost, no music, no chatter, no pretending anymore. She tried to talk one night. Sat at the edge of my bed and said, I never meant to hurt you, Garrett. I stared at her, cold. You didn't just hurt me, I said. You made me question everything. What love means. What trust looks like. What kind of person I thought you were. She cried, but I didn't care. She'd made her choices. Now she had to sit in the silence she created. Outside our walls, the cracks spread wider. Dad's friends closed ranks around him. The men who used to joke with Ethan at BBQs now acted like they never knew him. One even spray-painted trust is earned on Ethan's garage. Someone else egged his truck. That's how Meridian handled betrayal, passive-aggressive justice with a smile. The perfect little town we'd grown up in suddenly didn't feel so perfect. It never had been. It had just been good at hiding the rot, and now that rot was in the open for everyone to see. But underneath it all, there was a strange kind of peace growing, not joy. Not celebration, just truth, and after months of lies, that truth felt like oxygen, even if it burned. Dad bought a small fixer-upper on the edge of Nampa, 2 bedrooms, leaky roof, and a yard that looked more like a weed farm than a lawn. But it was his. No ghosts in the walls. No memories hiding in picture frames. He handed me a hammer on day one, said, let's tear out the past and build something better. And that's what we did. We ripped out old carpet. Painted walls. Replaced cabinets. Every screw we turned felt like therapy, every swing of the hammer, a release. Sometimes we worked in silence. Sometimes we talked. Not about Mom or Ethan, just about life, the future, what kind of grill he should get for the new porch. The air felt different in that house. Cleaner. Honest. One evening, as we sat on the steps watching the sun dip below the fields, he looked over and said, you saved me, son. I didn't answer right away, because the truth is, I wasn't trying to save him. I was trying to survive the wreckage. Trying to hold on to something good before everything I believed in vanished, but in helping him rebuild, I realized something. Revenge isn't fire and fury, it's silence when they expect rage, it's healing when they expect you to stay broken. We didn't burn their world down. We walked away from it, and built a new one with our own hands. No secrets. No lies. Just fresh paint and second chances, and for the first time in months, I slept through the night, not because I forgot what happened, but because I finally let go of everything I couldn't fix, and focused on what I could, us, the life we still had, the one we were building, nail by nail. I see her sometimes, at the Winco off Eagle Road. At the gas station near Meridian High. Once, parked alone at the Sonic, staring into a milkshake like it might hold a second chance. She's always alone now. The sundresses are gone, replaced with oversized hoodies and hair she doesn't bother straightening anymore. Her face, once vibrant and always camera-ready for the neighborhood cookouts, now looks hollow. Drained. Like someone took the color out of her world. We never speak. She sees me too, I know it. We lock eyes for a second longer than strangers should. Then we both look away. That's the way it is now. I used to imagine this moment differently, me telling her off, unloading all the rage she earned. But when it finally came, when I stood there in the cereal aisle with a box of granola bars in my hand and her 4 feet away by the bread rack, all I felt was nothing, no anger. No satisfaction. Just a dull ache, because the truth is, some things don't get fixed, you can repaint walls and rebuild broken houses. But trust? That doesn't get patched. Not when it's been lit on fire and danced over like a trophy. Dad's doing better. He planted tomatoes in the backyard. Joined a bowling league in Caldwell, and talks about taking a road trip to the Oregon coast. We still work on the house on weekends. Still talk late into the night sometimes over iced tea on the back steps. He's healing, I am too, but she haunts the aisles now. Not because I cursed her. But because she chose a path with no return. I wonder if she regrets it, if she plays it over in her head, the motel rooms, the texts, the years of lying to the man who trusted her most. I wonder if she sees my face when she sleeps, but I don't need to know, her silence in those aisles says enough. There's no dramatic ending here. No courtroom. No apology. No tearful reunion, there's just the quiet. And that quiet is the ending. 1,000 chances died in those lies. She buried them. I left the funeral without looking back, so now, when I pass her by, I keep walking. Past the bakery. Past the checkout line. Out into the sun where I know who I am, and who I'm becoming. Because the greatest revenge isn't destruction, it's peace, and I carry mine with me, free of her, forever. If this story hit home, or made you feel something you weren't expecting, don't just scroll past, like the video if you believe the truth always comes out, subscribe for more raw, emotional stories just like this, and drop a comment. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? How did you take your power back? Your story might be the